Welcome, everyone, to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, name is Abitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security to defend Israel. Thank you so much to all of our viewers and all of our supporters for tuning into this briefing so that we can really bring you behind the headlines, what is happening here in Israel. It's a great pleasure to be joined today by Yochanan ben Jacob, who will be providing today's briefing. Yochanan is highly experienced in Middle East affairs, and he is a major who was operating in the IDF spokesperson office. He was a paratrooper in the 202nd Regiment during the Yom Kippur War and operated in many different spheres here in Israel. Yochanan, it is a great pleasure to have you with us today. If you're able to unmute.
Just did.
There we go.
Thank you so much, Moshe. Actually,
Absolutely.
it's a great pleasure, and I'm very pleased to have this talk with you and to the audiences in the United States mainly, I suppose. Okay, and I'll just go ahead and start.
Yochanan, let me just give a little context for
yes.
everyone before we jump in.
Yes, please. Yes,
there
go
was
ahead.
an unprecedented attack by Israel on the Houthis, and a lot of the media has discussed. In our briefing yesterday, we discussed how what Israel did for the Houthis is a sign for what Israel can do for Iran. But we wanted to jump in today, not just focus on what it means for Iran, but who are the Houthis, what threat level they present for Israel, and what they indicate in the Middle East. So that's the background, Yochanan. Please jump in and share your expertise.
Okay, I will. Let's first of all give a little bit of a background of who are the Houthis to begin with, and their roots, a bit of the history, a bit of their wars that they have been conducting recently and a long time before. Let's talk a little bit about just the Yemen itself. I mean, Yemen is composed actually by about 30 types of tribes. I mean, they are not just one nation altogether. They are very diversified, and there are differences in between, and they are not all Shiites such as the Houthis. Mostly they are Sunnis, and the war started actually in the early 1960s by the government of Yemen and the Houthis themselves, which they come from up in the mountains. So so it's not something that they've started today. And who helped the government of Yemen at the time, 6 years ago? It was helped and assisted heavily by Gamal Abdel Nasser from Egypt. He was the president of Egypt at the time, and they bombarded all the villages of the Houthis and other tribes which were against the central government. And who helped the Houthis at the time? You will not believe that. Israel helped the Houthis, and they have supported them with ammunitions and with all sorts of other weapons, and they've dropped it to their villages, and they collected it, and that's how they were able to fight against the central government. So we do have some link in between with Israel and the Houthis of the time, and we had some agents working from them, because we have many Yemenites people in Israel that they were naturally citizens of Yemen at the time, so they could give a lot of information, and they could do the linkage between Israel and the Houthis, and that's how the weapons was dropped in the early 1960s, something like between 61 to 63. And of course, at the time, the Russians have helped the Egyptians to help the Houthis, and some of the actually it was at the time it was the Soviet Union. I should be more precise. And and at the time, the secretary of the party of the Soviet Union was Khrushchev at the time, and he actually the one which he took the power from Stalin, and he continued his dominations in the Middle East as much as possible, and they wanted to have an anchor in Yemen. Somehow it didn't work, and the Houthis were retained, and they went back to their mountains, and they could not really overcome the central government until very, very, very late. As you know, 1967, there was a war between Israel and Egypt and other nations. But let's jump to the recent event, and let's go to the Houthis about the last 10 years or so. Last 10 years or so, Iran has started building up proxies around the Middle East. The Houthis were one of them. Of course, I'll just mention the Hamas in Gaza, and of course the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and recently the Shiites in Iraq. Of course, there are another proxies which are very much under the dominations of Iran, and are led by Iran. But the proxy in Yemen, it's quite very important for the Iranians due to the navigations sailing to the Red Sea and to the South Sea and to the Southeast Asia, and the port of Hodeidah, which is part of the North Yemen, which are ruled and dominated by the Houthis, are very important for the Iranians, and they financed them and funded them with heavy weapons, and especially rockets and ballistic missiles. Just to jump a little bit more, again, about 4, 5, or 6 years ago, we remember very well the Houthis have fought very much at the time against Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you remember, but the Aramco company, which is the largest oil company of Saudi Arabia, was damaged heavily, and they have not returned back because they were very much afraid. They knew that they didn't want to start the war, but with rockets or with ballistic missiles or with Air Force, they have sent troops, but the troops were not able to fight the Houthis, and they lost time after time after time. In addition to Saudi Arabia, the Houthis have fought also the United Arab Emirates. So that was another enemy of the Houthis, which were actually directed by Iran. Iran practically has given the target to whom they should fight, and the reason so because they are very much at the tip of the Hormuz Strait in the Gulf, on the Persian Gulf or Arab Gulf. Some call it differently, depends on their nationalities, but the Iranian, they call it, of course, Persian Gulf. And the Hormuz Strait are very narrow at the time, and they are able to control practically any vessel that is going through the strait, and either, of course, oil tankers or army vessels, submarines, and they are operating over there mainly. I mean, they have taken down a couple of British vessels a couple of times, and they didn't try with the Americans, but the Americans' submarines were navigating a long time inside, and not to mention during Barack Obama and Bush administration. We remember very well that the forces of the United States have acted and fought much in Iraq, and they had to go via the Persian Gulf. So you have got right now a little bit of a background of who are the Houthis and who are directing them, and their funds are coming from, because they are a very poor country. I mean, they don't have any abilities, and they don't have the finance to operate such a big operations against big enemies like Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and to block the Red Sea and other, let's say, other places down the Oman, for example. And now, if you can bring the map, Moshe, I just like to show them exactly where are the Red Sea that they are blocking, and how does it damage. Yes, that's good. Okay, and here is the Sana area, and this is the northern part of the Houthis, and here is the southern part. And as you can see, this is Yemen also, but this is the southern part of Yemen. The Houthis are all over the place, and they are very much on the tip of the Bab el-Mandab. This is the strait. It's a very narrow area between Yemen and Djibouti, which is right here, and Ethiopia, right here. This is Ethiopia, and this is Djibouti, right here. And of course, Sudan, Khartoum, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, of course, Israel, and very important part is the Sinai Peninsula. Let's go forward a little bit, and let's view what is the length trip between Israel all the way down to the area of Hodeidah, the area that they've operated the attack. It's about 1,700 miles. I'm sorry, 700 kilometers, which is about 1,100 miles. So round trip, back and forth, it's about 3,500 kilometers, which is about 2,700 miles. So the blockade is for any vessels that they would like to, let's say, come from Japan or from India, either to Egypt or to the Mediterranean, going through the Suez Canal, or to the port of Haifa and the port of Aqaba, Jordan, must go through the Red Sea. They are blocking the Red Sea as anyone that they've tried to penetrate inside the Red Sea area was blocked by the Houthis. And okay, Moshe, if you have any questions, I can answer. And I do have plenty of things to say more, but let's take a short break.
Yochanan, thank you. Thank you so much for that very important background. So
thank you.
Israel just had an unprecedented strike on the Houthis. And since the beginning of this war, the Houthis sent 550 rockets to Israel. And only now, when someone died in Tel Aviv, was there an attack. I'm curious to know, why did Israel not do anything for the 550, right? I mean, obviously, a death in Tel Aviv is not good, but what about the first 550 rockets?
Okay, right. Okay, I'll answer that. Israel is currently, let's say, challenging two arenas. One, a major one in Gaza, which about 3 divisions are fighting the Hamas and their tunnels, which is really quite bleeding, and it's a catastrophe. We have lost almost about 650 soldiers, and the major impact right now between Israel and any arena, it's between Israel and Hamas. Also, we have another arena which is up north with the Hezbollah. Somehow, the state of Israel, the political echelon, have decided not to invade Lebanon yet, and not to invade, just react to the Hezbollah by rockets, especially, and by bombarding special places, let's say storages of missiles and storages of weapons within Lebanon, and even not only in the South Lebanon, all the way up to North Lebanon, which is the Bekaa Valley. So Israel was able, let's say, to handle all these 550 rockets and ballistic missiles, mainly, but by the way, it's more than all of them, practically speaking, are ballistic missiles, sonic speed. Rockets are for a very short distances, and for 1,700 or 1,900 kilometers are ballistic missiles. This is the definitions. Anyway, so Israel was able to absorb the fight with such rockets. I'm sorry, such ballistic missiles, and because they have a very good defensive air defense system, which is called Arrow 2 / Arrow 3. Depends on the type of a missile is being launched over to Israel. Most of the 550 missiles have landed in an area which have not populated, or mostly even to the sea. Some in Saudi Arabia, some in the Sinai Peninsula, such that Israel could have filtered exactly to which missiles they can intercept, and they were all intercepted. So there was few that they've landed around Eilat, and they've caused the chaos. However, they did not really hit anyone. So Israel thought that they can continue with that, can absorb the missiles, can answer it with their air defense systems, the Arrow 3, and in a given time they can reply and they can react if necessary. And that was a necessary time. What happened is that this time they have not sent a missile, okay, to Israel, to Tel Aviv. It was a drone. It was an Iranian drone. There are two main drones that Iran really is famous of. Is the Shahed 136, which is a suicidal type of a drone, and there is a Shahed 238. The 238 is much faster. It's a more problematic, and it has more explosive, and it can do more harms. Nevertheless, they have used another drone which composed only with 15 kilos, which is about 30 pounds of explosive. It's not so catastrophic. And can you show me again the map? I like to show exactly the route of the drone, and it was a completely a different one. Okay, usually, whenever they directed missile, it was straight like this, which mainly navigated all over the atmosphere of the Red Sea. However, this time the drone, it took them a long time, and it was very, very slow. It was not supersonic, and it was directed to Djibouti, over Sudan, over Egypt, crossing the Sinai Peninsula, coming over the sea from the west, and hitting Tel Aviv, which is practically exactly maybe a few meters scratch from the windows of the United States consulate, which used to be the embassy for 70 years or so, until about a few years ago, when President Trump moved it to Jerusalem. So that was very bad for us, and unfortunately, it was a human mistake. The drone was noticed from actually from the moment of its launch. So Israel had managed really to follow the drone, and somehow whoever were in charge, they've said it's too slow. It's not coming from the Red Sea. It's coming from Africa, or it's not harmful, and it's not an enemy, and it can't be a ballistic missile which is coming from Yemen, and definitely Egypt are not going to launch a missile or a drone to us. So just let it go there. It will flow and it will fall someplace. It's a human mistake. And that's how once this it landed over a building in Tel Aviv, just a few yards from the maybe 100 150 yards from the United States consulate. They have decided that some kind of a reprisal should take place, and that's what happened. Now let me just get a little bit to the reprisal. Israeli Air Force have practiced that. Practice such a reprisal. It's not something that they've decided from one moment to another, let's do it and bang. It's not. It's something that they have practiced. It took place actually about 6 weeks ago, or to maybe 2 months, even less, such that they were the whole thing took place in Greece. Actually, the practice took place in Greece. Just a little bit. Let's back it up a little bit. Israel used to, its Air Force used to practice in Incirlik, Turkey, for many years. It's a NATO Air Force. It's in the east of Turkey, and until Erdogan took office, the Israeli Air Force, they practiced most of their jet fighters, mainly F-16, F-15, of course, and other fighter planes, not necessarily that they were jets. They practiced anything they wanted, even helicopters in Incirlik. But since and they were receiving lots of money for that, really. I mean, they were very pleased with the money that Israel paid Turkey for their pilots to practice in Incirlik. Not to mention that the American base inside the Incirlik, United Kingdom and France, and I'm not so sure about France. I take it back. But other European countries which are part and participating in NATO, they were practicing over there also, because it was at the time closed and they could have an eye over the Soviet Union. That's why Incirlik was selected. But let's go to let's focus to our needs. And they participated bombing. They participated refueling during flights, and they have taken practically the entire composition of this practice that took place about 6-7 weeks ago in Greece, and they have just implied it automatically to Port of Hodeida and North Yemen. If with your permission, can I go straight and talk about the invasion, the attack?
Yeah, we only have a few minutes left, so give us your most concise, brief highlights of that attack, and then we're going to make sure to bring you back. We're going to make sure to bring you back for more. So just a few minutes. Tell us what you can about the Israel capabilities on the attack.
Okay. So the very next day, it was Saturday. On Sunday morning, they have selected the pilots already during the night, and there are about 10 F-35s, about the same thing about F-15s and few F-16s, and fueling planes also to refuel the jet fighters, and surveillance such as Israeli AWACS. United States did not want to sell AWACS to Israel, so Israel has built its own version. And another plane, a big plane, to just to follow exactly the battle and everything, the attack. So to send in a real time all the informations to the government that they are following. The one that the one really that they have bombed the Hodeidah were not the F-35s, were the F-15s. The F-15s are the bombers. The F-35 are the jet planes that have opened the route, and they were hovering around and to protecting and see if there are any other threats that they might threaten either Iranian or whatever, okay, that they can threat our jet fighters and the F-16s also. The actual job was taken by the F-15. Just 1 minute, not even less than 1 minute. I mean, it's not the same F-15, F-16 of F-35 that you have in the American either Navy or Air Force. It's completely a different jet fighter. For example, the avionics and the electronics of these jet fighters are built in Israel. When Israel purchased this airplane, they were purchased naked, and the avionics was put on the helmet of the pilot. The pilot does not have to see it. Let's say in a small laptop on his right-hand side or left-hand side, it's automatically see it in his helmet, and everything that has to do with that, it comes from the avionics that the pilots can see. Do you want to say something, or you want to stop me or something, or can I have another 2 minutes?
We're gonna have to stop it here.
Okay.
We're gonna make sure to have you back because of your clear expertise in all of these technical
thank you so much
levels. So I want to thank you, Yochanan, for joining, for sharing all of this. I want to thank all of our viewers and supporters for tuning into this briefing. We're going to bring Yochanan back. Absolutely. And
okay, thank you so much.
We're going to be back as a briefing tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern time, 5 p.m. here in Israel. Until then, stay safe, stay strong. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much, Moshe. Thank you. Bye. Cheers.